You're listening to Glove Up or Shut Up on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
You're listening to Glove Up or Shut Up on AngryMarks.com with Peter H. and Stevie J. Find them on Twitter at HardcoreCDN and at AngryMarks. And now, for all news, reviews, and interviews in mixed martial arts, it's time for Glove Up or Shut Up from AngryMarks.com.
And welcome everybody to another episode of Glove Up or Shut Up right here on AngryMarks.com. My name is Peter H. I'm joined once again by my co-host from Omaha, Nebraska, Stevie J.
Good evening, Peter. How's the weather in Ottawa tonight?
It's very warm and sticky. We're in the midst of another heat wave here, so mid-30s, maybe early 40s Celsius, so it's nice and warm in the August weather.
Yes.
You?
Yeah, we're in the high 90s and Fahrenheit, not Celsius, and probably gonna peak out around 98 or 99 this week, so it's a scorcher here too.
Sometimes, for those listening, sometimes Stevie will send me a message saying it's as hot in Ottawa as it is in Vegas right now. And I don't doubt it one bit.
Yeah, every now and then, either Ottawa or Omaha gets as hot as Vegas, but Vegas usually has us beat 9 times out of 10.
Yes. But let's talk about this week's show. We got a packed show as always. We've got 2 shows that happened this past week. A big UFC fight night this week, air quotes on the big, and a really interesting news segment this week. We're actually going to start with the news because we're going to wrap up the news with a story that happened involving the unified rules of mixed martial arts. So we're going to get there in a second, but we should get to other news first, including, I can't remember the last time I'm going to start the news with World Series of Fighting, Stevie, but this is a pretty interesting one. World Series of Fighting 36 is happening on New Year's Eve on NBC at Madison Square Garden.
That's right. They announced it during World Series of Fighting 32.
We'll talk about that show in a bit, but do you think this is going to work this side of, like, on this end of the world? Because you know what happens every year overseas, but to have it at a big venue on New Year's Eve in New York, like, it's either smart or crazy. I'm not sure which yet.
All I can say is they have to load up that card, and who knows what that's going to entail, but they can't just run any other World Series fighting show if they intend to have a decent-sized crowd in Madison Square Garden on New Year's Eve. They're going to have to do something big.
Yeah, I mean, this should be their International Fight Week. This should be their WrestleMania. This should be their Super Bowl.
That's right. It's going to be a signature card. There's no question about it. You're going to have 1, if not 2 title fights and a lot of big names on that show.
All right, so let's move on to UFC Fight Night 95 being announced in Brasilia, Brazil. The second time they're going there, and I'm excited because whenever they go to Brazil, you know the soccer fans, they're going to love it.
Absolutely.
And staying on Fight Night news, Fight Night 96, Will Brooks is fighting Alex Oliveira, Josh Berkman against Bobby Green, and Sergio Pettis and Louis Smolka will fight.
It's a good card, and good to see that they're moving Will Brooks up fast, which is what he wanted.
Now that's a test for him. I mean,
we're going to say that every single time he fights in UFC.
Well, he's a former Bellator champ. The bar has to be raised.
Right, and they're going to keep raising the bar until he fails to pass it.
Oh.
I mean, this is exactly the same thing that happened to Eddie Alvarez. People said he's a Bellator champion, he better be good, and his first fight wasn't good, and people wrote him off too early, and then he came back and showed the world what he was made of.
And, you know, when it comes to the Alvarez, where is he now? Remind me again, what is he doing right now? What's his rank in the UFC?
He is not even number 1, because the champion is above number 1.
Yeah, he's the champ, and that's for a reason. Bellator, UFC, doesn't matter. Alvarez is the champ. Brooks is trying to, become another former Bellator champ to make that jump from Bellator champ to UFC champ.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, Berkman and Green, that is interesting, but I'm really interested in Pettis and Smolka because that one could be a fight that steals that show.
No disagreement.
I'm really high on Sergio Pettis. I don't know. It's just...
He's been doing well of lately. He's arguably doing better than his brother.
Yeah, that's for sure. And that show is going to take place in Portland, so I think it's a little too far for you, Stevie.
Yeah, I'm not making any trips anywhere anytime soon anyway.
Alright, let's talk. Okay, I'll move that later because that involves a fighter on UFC 201, but I'm going to give you a couple of fighters, and I'm going to say who they want to fight next, and you tell me if this is crazy or it's a good fight. Okay?
How about yay or nay?
Todd Duffy wants to fight... Okay, Todd Duffy wants to fight Travis Brown.
Yay.
Michael Johnson wants a rematch versus Nate Diaz.
Yay.
And Rafael dos Anjos, actually, that's the other one. This one's actually confirmed now from Mexico City. Rafael dos Anjos and Tony Ferguson.
Yay.
That one, damn, that is a good fight.
Yeah, that's your next lightweight contender right there.
And Ferguson, I mean, he's climbed that ladder. Now this is the test. There's no bigger name than RDA. If you want to go for the belt, RDA is the guy.
Right. I say the winner of that is pretty much the next number one contender. I don't see who you could put ahead of either one of them.
No, you can't even say Cerrone if he goes down to 155, but he's good at 170, so. No, RDA and Ferguson, that's number one, that's the next shot.
You got it.
Alright, we'll talk about that in a bit. I'm just going over my notes, make sure I don't skip anything. Okay, let's talk about the Rules Committee.
Let's do that.
Alright, so the ABC Rules Committee, basically met with the commissions, and on a vote of 42-1, there are going to be new rules in place. The only state that voted nay was the state of New Jersey. And if you're wondering who's on this ABC Rules Committee, Sean Wheelock is the chair, former guest on the show. Rennie Couture, Jeremy Horn, Matt Hughes, John McCarthy, and Kevin McDonald.
That is a very solid crew.
So they know what they're talking about. And some of the rules they have implemented, and these are the ones that are going to go through. Now it's up to each state to implement them. They don't have to, but, you know, this is the unified body, so you're going to have different states approving on different days type of thing. Alright, so one is they're going to be eliminating loose-fitting clothing for women fighters.
That's a good idea.
I saw that in Ottawa with Letourneau. She kept adjusting her shirt all the way through the fight, and some say that led to her loss because she couldn't quite, every couple seconds she was readjusting her top. And, you know, it's supposed to be form-fitting. It's supposed to be helping the fighters so they wouldn't have to readjust themselves every 5 seconds. And, you know, it's not a distraction, but it's, you know what I mean? Like, I'm having trouble saying the words, but you don't want your fighter to readjust every 5 seconds. Yeah.
The point is, it's not like you would want to reach down and adjust your jock strap every 5 seconds.
Exactly. Now, there's also, this is a big thing, Stevie. I'm going to give you the floor on this, but there are now changes to what defines a grounded fighter.
That's right. You can't do the old, I got a hand down, see, I got a hand down, that was an illegal knee, see, you can't knee me, I got a hand down. Now you have to have both hands and both feet on the ground to be considered a grounded opponent. No more of this pussyfooting around with one hand down and one hand up.
Remember the whole 3-point stance argument?
Exactly.
I've got 3 fingers, I'm a grounded... No, you're not. You have a finger on the floor.
Exactly. That doesn't fly anymore. To be considered a grounded opponent, you must actually be grounded. What a novel concept!
Now, there's going to be penalties as well for outstretched fingers, so basically they're trying to cut down on eye pokes.
That's John Jones' rule, as I've heard it called by many people.
Mm-hmm. And it will no longer be a foul to grab the clavicle, otherwise known as the collarbone.
Yeah. Really shouldn't be anyway. Well, the one that you were really fascinated by was the heel to the bladder.
No, heels to the kidneys.
Heel, whatever. You made a big point of it being very painful to urinate after you get one.
Yeah, it sounds painful, and I don't want to get kicked in the kidneys. I don't know about you, but a heel strike to the kidneys, that's just... It sounds very painful.
Most anything that can happen to you in combat sports is painful, so really not an exception.
No. Alright, so we talked about New Jersey was the only state not to allow it, and New Jersey is supporting changes for the women's uniforms, as well as the no foul for grabbing the clavicle, but they disagree on all the other changes that was recommended by the committee.
Well, too bad for them. They're outvoted.
All right, so one last point about the rules, then we'll go on to UFC 201. And this one is, man, we've talked about this so much. I'm finally happy to say this on this show, Stevie. They have a more clear definition of what a 10-8 round is.
Well, then read it to us. What did they say?
Okay, so basically there's going to be 3 stages. Effective striking and grappling. That's the first criteria. Now, if they're tied, both fighters have an equal percentage of effective striking and grappling in the round, then it goes to aggression. And then the third criteria below that is octagon control.
That's really no different than it was before.
But a 10-8 round should be something where they show dominance, duration, and impact. They didn't say damage. Damage was a word that's used in the language. I mean, you can talk to Sean Wheelock about the language used between damage and impact, because damage, there's some legality, and it's walking down a very slippery slope when you say damage, because it opens up to lawsuits. So we'll say impact, just for sake of argument. Now, if you have 2 of the 3, if you have dominance, duration, and impact, if you have 2 of the 3, that should be a 10-8 round. If you have all 3 of dominance, duration, and impact, it must be a 10-8 round.
That seems like a pretty clear-cut definition.
How many times have we talked about this on this show?
Lots.
Like, that should be a 10-8 round. That should be a 10-8 round. Now we've got it actually in the rules, in the writing, in the language of the law, what a 10-8 round is.
Well, it can be in writing, but you still have to educate the judges on scoring and to follow the criteria. It's going to take time for them to realize they should actually do it.
It's true. It will take time, but this is a step. This is a step in the right direction.
It's a good first step.
And with one step comes another and another and another, and 5 or 10 years later, we're going to have a totally different discussion on what a 10-8, hell, maybe we'll even see a 10-7 round. Who knows?
Yeah. I don't know why, but the way you said that just made me think of an old 80s pop song. One thing leads to another.
Jesus. The karaoke segment of Glove or Shut Up is brought to you by Stevie J.
Of course.
All right, Stevie, let's talk about what happened this past weekend. UFC 201, Robbie Lawler defending the welterweight title against Tyrone Woodley. And let's just say, I'm going to read I have a couple of fighters here who had their songs written down.
Yeah,
T. Wood came out to King Without a Crown, and Lawler came out to Hold On, I'm Coming.
Alright, before we talk about the result, I want to talk about what I said on last week's show.
Go for it.
I will quote myself here. I said, people are not giving Tyrone Woodley enough credit. I don't agree with the odds on him. I think they should be closer. I'm not saying I'm picking him to win, but we've had a year of upsets, so if he did win, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Unquote.
Yep. They should have renamed this show. You want upsets? We'll give you upsets.
I believe Dave Meltzer said that 44% of all UFC fights this year have been upsets.
Doesn't surprise me.
That's why I'm just gonna go ahead and call this the year of the upset. 2016 is officially that year.
And we're only in August.
Yeah, it's far from over.
Alright, for those who don't know, Tyrone Woodley is your new welterweight champion at 2 minutes and 12 seconds of the very first round.
It was a one-sided bell. Yeah, Lawler was in trouble the first time he got clocked.
And did he ever? I mean, that is a highlight knockout. It's going to be in the top 5 of the year.
Definitely. No question.
And you know what's funny? The day of the show, I was watching the UFC, it was Unfiltered or one of the preview shows they do. And when I turned on the channel, it went right to the Koscheck knockout that Woodley did. And they had it in slow motion. I'm like, oh, is this an omen? I don't know.
You know, that fight was so one-sided and so quick that it's almost more interesting to talk about what Woodley had to say after the fight.
With Wonderboy?
Yeah, basically dismissing Wonderboy, saying, you can go have Lawler if you want him. I want Buddy. I want the Buddy fight.
You see, Thompson was smart. He's on the Fox panel. He's trying to get that next fight, and Woodley just stonewalled him.
I would go so far as to say Woodley completely blew him off. He said, I'd rather fight Nick Diaz or George St. Pierre. I want a money fight.
Because he doesn't see money in Thompson, and I mean, I saw Thompson firsthand. I'm not sure if it was the fight or if it was just that one night, but I don't know if you give Thompson that fight. I hate to say it, but I agree with Woodley on this.
Well, he made the point that he doesn't even agree with Thompson being ranked where he is right now. I believe he said something to the effect of, you know how those rankings are made, and you know what I think of that. Basically, if I may be so bold, denigrating all of us who vote on the actual rankings.
Did that raise your blood pressure?
No,
just a little bit when you said that.
I'm not going to get my panties in a twist over it, because fighters say that all the time, but they think that we're not even trying over here. And believe you me, when you have to vote for 15 fighters in a dozen weight classes, including pound for pound, it's a lot of effort. It's not something that any of us half-ass. We do take this seriously and put work into it. So if we all agree that Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is number one, it's not by accident.
I would almost...
In fact,
I'd almost
Peter,
I'm
sorry to interrupt, but I gotta go one further here. I gotta say something else about it. It's not like we don't all get a rankings advisory from UFC before every single card. So if any of them have an objection to how we rank people, why don't they take it up with their employer?
That's a very fair point. Now, I'm in the camp of Lawler should get a rematch, because this is a great match. I mean, don't do it right away. Obviously, he needs time to heal, but I think you rematch these two because you really can't judge what this fight was, if it was a fluke, if it was a one-off, or if it was Lawler basically just, he's no longer at the champion caliber. Can you really say that after getting knocked out in 2 minutes?
I think he deserves a rematch. I just don't know that he wins it.
I think it goes longer than 2 minutes.
I think he doesn't get crushed the way he did in this fight, but I still think in terms of youth and athleticism, he's probably got an edge on him.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see who they put up against him next, but
Nick Diaz has already shot down the idea of fighting him.
Of course he has.
And basically, he said, I don't need the fight. I don't need to fight at all. I've already done all the fighting I need to do. They need to make it worth my time, not the other way around.
Alright, Mr. Rap Reviews, how old is this King Without a Crown song?
Oh, shit. Didn't know you were gonna press me for a date on it.
No, is it recent? Is it a couple years? 5, 10? Just ballpark it.
I'm gonna say it's 12 years old. I think it's early 2000s, 2003 or 2004.
So do you think he still uses that song now? Because he actually has his crown now.
You know what? If it was a good omen for him to come out to it before he had the title, keep using it after.
Yeah. If it works, it works.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, let's talk about Carolina against Rose.
Yeah, another upset. And this was not something that just went down to a knockout. This was judges having to score it. So I gotta ask if you agree with them.
You know, I do. I actually had it 29-28 for Carolina, and I was like, I wrote that down. I'm like, I circled the score, and I was like, I'm not 100% confident in this one, but I got 10-9 on a very slim margin in that third round. That third round, it was tied after 2 rounds. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
it's that third round.
I 100% agree with you. The third round, if you're gonna edge it to Carolina for the third round, I'm willing to do that.
But very slim. This fight could have gone either way. If the Lawler fight gets rematched, this fight definitely gets rematched.
Yeah, if they fight this fight 10 times, probably Rose wins 5 times and Carolina wins 5 times. They're that well matched with each other.
I'd pay to see it again.
I would too.
Now, does this main event a show or a semi-main event like this one did?
I think it depends on whether or not Carolina is moving on to a title shot.
All right, well, fair enough. She wants Joanna champion, and that's an interesting fight there.
Yeah, and they're already talking about how that could be the main event of a UFC show in Poland.
Ooh, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Jake Ellenberger and Matt Brown.
Wow, did I call this one wrong or what?
Swing and a miss.
It happens. And especially this year with the year of upsets. It happens a lot.
Yeah, it's, I just don't think it was Matt Brown's night. Like, he came out, normal Matt Brown, and it's like, after the fight started, I'm like, Ellenberger comes on, and, come on, Matt, come on, uh-oh. And I say the Ellenberger Bowl, I'm like, oh, Jake's got this. And then, nope, that's it. I was like, that's it. Like, there was no...
Well, you know, we talked about liver shots earlier, and this was a pretty sweet liver shot that he hit him with.
Oh. Yeah, it was pinpoint.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if you heard the story about Ellenberger getting this fight, because there is a little more to it than we knew.
Yeah, actually what I heard was Ellenberger was supposed to be cut from the UFC, but he talked his way into one last fight to prove himself, and did he ever?
Yeah, he basically went and made the pitch, and I don't know if he made it to Dana White or Lorenzo Fertitta or both, but this was before the UFC was sold to WME-IMG, and they were going to cut him, as you said, and in fact, I guess the deed had already been done, and he got word of it and went to Las Vegas and personally campaigned for it and said, I know why you want to release me, but give me one more chance, give me one more fight, keep me on, and I'll prove it was worth it.
Basically, let me go out on my sword.
Yeah. He was going to win or lose. If he lost, he'd accept being cut, and if he won, he'd have made his point. So, congratulations to the Juggernaut. He made his point.
Now, as I said on the show last week, a loss here for Matt Brown doesn't necessarily mean he's cut, but his next fight is definitely lose town.
Now he is definitely in the same position that Ellenberger was just in, where one more loss could be his swan song.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. And we saw pissed off Matt Brown before in Ultimate Fighter.
That is true.
Kind of pity the guy who fights him next.
It's tough though, because I remember when Matt Brown went on that epic 6 or 7 fight win streak and he was just destroying people left and right. It's a little disheartening to see him now be in this position. It's like he goes from the top of the high to the bottom of the low. It's just a complete reversal of fortune for him.
And with Ellenberger, he lives to fight another day.
That he does. So Omaha can celebrate that one in style.
I'm sure there's like a few local pubs you can recommend where he probably celebrated.
No, actually, he does most of his training in California these days, so he probably celebrated at a pub out there after he got back from the fight.
Fair enough. What about Eric Perez and Francisco Rivera?
Quality fight, quality win for Eric Perez, I would say.
That was a one-sided butt kicking. 30-26, 30-26, and 29-28. Are you fucking serious?
How many times are you going to complain about this? It's judging. You know what it is. That's why you say never leave it to the judges. That's your whole point.
But we talked about 10-8 rounds before.
Yeah.
You're telling me there wasn't a single round that was 10-8?
Yeah, well, I'm not the judge who scored it, so I don't know what criteria that particular judge used, but quite frankly, I don't agree with 29-28 in any way, shape, or form. I don't want you to think that I do. It's just, what am I supposed to do about it sitting over here? I can't do a damn thing.
It's true. No, it's true. It's a good thing this show wasn't sponsored by LensCrafters.
Yeah, well, maybe he was too busy looking at text messages on his cell phone instead of the monitor or the cage or whatever, you know, he just...
It could have been the cage, it could have been the corner between rounds telling him the wrong advice. You know, maybe like, hey, you're still in this fight, you're still in this fight.
Yeah, but you're not supposed to listen to that. We all know I mean, we know Greg Jackson is campaigning every single time one of his guys fights. We know he's trying to sway the judges with what he yells.
I was at a bar once for one of these shows, right? And you could hear Greg Jackson on the commentary. And someone at the bar got to the pool hall goes, "Wow, those fans are really loud." And I go over, I'm like, "That's not the fans, that's the coach." It can't be the coach. I'm like, "No, that's the coach, man. I'm telling you, it's Jackson."
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll flip the script on you. Brian Benoit beating Freddie Serrano 29-28 times 2 and 28-29. Did the right guy win here?
I totally agree. Benoit was the winner of this fight.
It was close, but I agree with Benoit winning here. But, I mean, as well as the other fight with Carolina and Rose. It's one of those fights where, yes, you never leave it to the judges, but I think in both of these fights, the right fighter won.
I think so too, so nothing to debate.
Nope. All right, on the prelims,
wow.
Ed Herman
we had some amazing prelim fights here.
That head kick was...
Woo! Boy, yeah, Ed Herman might be retiring after that one.
His jaw went one way, and I don't know. I don't think I have the words. It was just such a... I don't want to say he planned it that way. It just sometimes with the right kick at the right moment, like the circumstance of it all.
Yeah, well...
Picture perfect.
We're going to be talking about that with World Series of Fighting, too.
Oh, yeah. We'll get there. Jorge Masvidal beating Ross Pearson 30-27, 29-28, and 29-28. I think this is the end of Ross Pearson.
I really do. And I said it last week. I said Pearson is not who he used to be, and he's not winning many of these fights anymore, and Jorge Masvidal has more upside, and I'm not going to be, I'm not trying to just pat myself on the back and be all Barry Horowitz about it, but yeah.
For those who don't know, Google that stuff.
Right.
Anthony Hamilton beating Damian Grabowski and Wilson Reese beating Hector Sandoval. Those are your prelims on Fox Sports 2.
Now, did I hear this was the second fastest knockout in heavyweight history, or was it the fastest? Because it was one or the other. It's pretty close.
It was second fastest. There was a 7-second knockout.
That's right. So, Anthony Hamilton just did not waste any time. He was not getting paid by the hour here.
Not even paid by the minute.
Yeah, well, Wilson Hayes was equally devastating with not a knockout, but a rear naked choke. So, congratulations to both of them on outstanding performances. Although, those were not performance bonuses because that went to Carolina and Rose for Fight of the Night. And the performance of the night bonuses were Tyrone Woodley and Jake the Juggernaut Ellenberger.
Now with Hayes and with Sandoval, you know what the big thing was about this fight that was quite interesting from a hip-hop rap perspective?
Well, why don't you tell our audience all about it?
They came out to dueling Biggie songs.
It was bound to happen at some point.
Let's see. Hayes came out to Notorious Thugs. And Sandoval came out to Juicy.
Both good choices.
Now, on the prelim of Fight Pass, there's another fight I want to talk about.
I hate to interrupt, but
shoot,
you might as well say it's a Biggie song and a Bone Thug song, because that's why it's called Notorious Thugs. It's not just Biggie.
But still, Biggie on back-to-back songs in a fight, it's very rare that you have both fighters picking the same artist in the music.
Actually, I'll be more interested to see if this ever happens. If one fighter comes out to Biggie's Who Shot Ya, and another comes out to Tupac's Hit 'Em Up.
No, don't give people ideas. Don't.
Somebody's gonna do it at some point, some promotion, somewhere.
Yeah, then you have some fighter who used to be a cop, and his opponent comes out to I Shot the Sheriff.
I think that actually has happened.
I wouldn't be surprised, actually, now that I say it out loud.
So, I assume you want to talk about Damian Brown and Cesar Arzamendia?
Because Brown came out to Five Finger Death Punch's Bad Company, and Arzamendia came out to, shout out to Danny, because he came out to Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, but it didn't help.
No, he got knocked out in 2 minutes and 21 seconds, and when I told our friend Danny from SuperFriendsUniverse.com that the guy got beat in 2 minutes...
No, it's not Super Friends Universe anymore.
Oh, that's right. It's Geekdom 101.
Right. boy, did I get lectured by him when I called it that on one of my YouTube videos. So, no, get it right.
Geekdom 101, I told him that the fighter got knocked out using the Dragon Ball Z song, and he said good. It's like, good. It's like, what is he gonna say? Good. It's like, don't use the song. Just don't.
All I can say is he's gonna need those 7 Dragon Balls to resurrect him after this punch.
I swear, someone comes out to the Pokemon theme after all the Pokemon Go stuff in the news the last few weeks. No. Just no.
I doubt they're even gonna get the rights to do that. I doubt Nintendo would allow that.
Yeah, they're pretty rich. Alright, so we talked about all the different music there. Okay, so let's go over to World Series of Fighting 32 with Big Brother and Little Brother. Oh, you got another story?
I got one more thing to say to you about UFC 201.
Go ahead.
Jake Ellenberger versus Jorge Masvidal is the talk now after they both won their fights.
I like it. I think Masvidal wins, but in the year of upsets, not a guarantee.
Yeah, Ellenberger could make it 2 in a row. I wouldn't put it past him.
I don't know. This year it's just too sketchy.
Alright, so you want to move on to World Series of Fighting. Brother versus brother. Is that where you wanted to start with this card?
Yeah, let's talk about this one. And
it got very personal.
The World Series.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It got very personal at the weigh-ins because Phoenix Jones, Ben Fodor missed weight. It was supposed to be a catch weight of 162 pounds. He came in like 6-7 pounds over that, and they got into a shoving match and had to be separated.
Well, it's one thing to miss weight. It's very unprofessional. But to miss weight on a big fight against your brother, so to speak, air quotes, brother.
Yeah, they did confirm what I've been saying all along on commentary. They're adopted brothers.
Yeah, exactly. And let's just do this one, then we'll talk about the main event fights after this. But Ben Fodor, not his night.
No, and this is where having experience in Strikeforce and 1FC really showed, because it was never even a close fight, and it was not an exciting fight, and the crowd was not really happy with the fight, but experience pays dividends, because Carlos knew that there was no way for his brother to stop his takedowns, so he did exactly what he had to do. Every time he got the opportunity, there was a swing and a miss by Phoenix Jones, he would just drop right down to his knees and get the double leg or get the single leg and take him down and ride out the round.
It's almost like he knew what he was going to do before he did it. Like, I don't know, family?
Yeah, well, that and just being a better overall fighter with more experience, because not saying Phoenix Jones is a bad fighter, but he hasn't fought at as high a level against as quality a level of opponents as his brother.
Now, the thing is, you think they ever trained before in the past?
Well, obviously they have. They broke their training camp in two because they didn't want to train together anymore when they had to fight each other.
So they know each other's weaknesses and strong points, right?
To a degree, yes, but if Ben was training on his own, then he could have had new tricks in the bag that his brother wouldn't have known about.
Fair enough.
But he didn't. Obviously, it didn't. No. Whatever he thought he had, he didn't have. He missed weight, he lost the fight, and everything that could have gone wrong for him did.
Now let's talk about the main event. Marlon Moraes against Josh Hill for the bantamweight title, and Hill looked pretty good for a little bit.
Yeah, for 5 minutes and 36 seconds, he looked great. And then he got kicked in the head and froze.
Then some punches.
Yeah, well, you could say the punches finished the fight, but honestly, after that head kick, you could see the lights were out and nobody was home. He was still physically present, but the switch had been flipped. He was not there.
I watched this fight thinking, well, Hill's looking pretty good, and then just bang. I'm like, oh, crap.
Bang is a pretty good word for it, too, because that kick was like a gunshot. It was just bang, he's done.
And it was the thing where you almost think like he was playing like possum with him, just toying with him, waiting for his opportunity just to land that kick.
well, Moraes did vow to me that he was going to win faster and more decisively than he did the last time they fought, and he made good on his promise. I'm not saying he's like Mystic Mac over here, but he said what
Mystic Mac.
he said what he was going to do, and he did it. So you got to give him credit.
It's true. All right, Lance Palmer and Alexander Almeida for the featherweight title.
This one will probably be controversial for a lot of reasons. One of them is because the last time they fought, when Palmer was originally the champion, it was razor thin. It was 48-47 across the board. There were 2 rounds that Palmer definitely won in that fight. There was one that was up in the air, but he just had a really hard time taking Almeida down and controlling him. So, knowing that was difficult with a much larger opponent in the fight where he lost the title, he changed tactics for this fight. And instead of trying to take him down all of the time, which was to his detriment in their last fight, this time, when the takedowns weren't there, he would concentrate on shots to the body, and then when he could get into range against the taller man, he would duck under and reach up, almost jumping off his feet to throw a big left hook, and several times he did catch him clean with that. So it depends on what you consider effective striking, I suppose. And as I said to somebody on the MMA Mania commentary, like the section below where you can post what you think of the fight and whatever you want to talk about, somebody in there said that was a robbery. Almeida won that fight. And my response was, I'd have to look at the CompuStrike, because if they broke down what was effective striking and who landed more strikes, you might be able to argue that Palmer was more active and more effective. However, the best punch of the entire fight was not his, but Almeida's, when he got knocked down clean in the 3rd round and almost finished.
That was the only round I gave Almeida.
So you scored 4-1. Well,
yeah.
The judges are, they're all over the map with this one. I mean, 48-48. What do you even do with that?
How do you get 48-48?
I don't know. I can't begin to tell you.
I agree with the 49-46. I'll agree with the 48-47. But you got on one side a 50-45, which, okay, sure. But 48-48, that's a pretty decisive score. Like, that is...
You mean pretty indecisive? Is that the word you meant?
Yeah, I was being sarcastic. But yes, I heard the score and I had to rewind. I was like, wait, what? My ears must be on the fritz here or something. I'm not sure what I just heard.
You can't even explain it as one of the judges took a point away, because there was a warning from the referee that if you kick Palmer in the cup one more time, I'm taking away a point. But that never actually occurred. Almeida did not kick him in the cup again. In fact, Palmer kicked Almeida in the cup.
Well, A for B.
Yeah.
All right, so what do you think about Lewis Taylor beating Phil Hawes with a guillotine at 2:50 in the 2nd round?
Well, I guess that officially ends the hype train for Hawes, who people were saying was the next John Jones out of the Jackson Winkeljohn camp. And, well, if he is, he has to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to do it right, because he made I wouldn't say a rookie mistake here, but definitely not one that the next John Jones would make, where he pretty much gave his neck to Lewis Taylor, and Lewis Taylor said, okay, you're going to give me your neck, I'm going to pull a guard into a guillotine, and I'm going to choke you the hell out. And it was so tight that I think Hawes was unconscious even after he tapped out. I think when they were checking on him, when there was like a whole circle of doctors and officials, they were like, are you okay? Are you conscious? Hello? Are you there?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he didn't say, can we go see the bunny rabbits?
Yeah, when I say he was not present when I was talking about what Moraes did to Hill, I think the same thing happened in a completely different way here. I think after he got choked to that degree, I think Phil Hawes didn't even know where he was.
Does a fighter really want to be the next John Jones? Or does he want to be the first, like, does Haas want to be the first, next John Jones, or does he want to be the first Phil Haas?
That's true as well. And maybe nobody really wants to be John Jones at this point anyway, given his multiple failures for many different things. I think John Jones is probably not a person you'd want to emulate anyway, but that's who in his camp he was being compared to.
No one's getting a John Jones is my role model tattooed on their arm.
If your role model is a drug addict and a drunk driver and a drug test failure, then yeah, you could tattoo that.
Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything on the prelims that caught your eye? Cause you're more of a World Series of Fighting, fan than I am, but some of these names, I know a few of them, but is there anything that catches your eye?
Well, you gotta say Hakeem Dawodu had a really good fight against Marat Magomedov, who was considered one of the prospects out of Russia that was on the rise and gonna do big things in World Series fighting, but Hakeem shut him down and made his case for possibly being the next guy to face Lance Palmer now that he got the title back. So good on him for the TKO in the second round, about 2 minutes into that fight. So well done. And if you watched World Series Fighting's Anders Nakahara beating Travis Dorsch, you might have thought that name sounds familiar, and it would, because he was on the American Top Team versus Black Zillion season of The Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah, I mean, it's, with Magomedov, you know, that's one name you had to have your eye on, especially with the New Year's Eve show. A dominant win here would have put him in the conversation for maybe having a fight on that card. It's a step back, but I think it's a case where you're going to learn more from a loss than a win here.
Very true. And you know what? If you like absolute slobber knocker heavyweight fights, go out of your way to watch Matt Kovac and Bill Whittler. Neither one of these guys is going to be a heavyweight champion in any promotion anywhere. I mean, the guy who won still has a losing record even after winning, but they just went out there and went after each other, and sometimes that's all you can ask for.
I was more impressed with Nakahara beating Dorsch 55 seconds.
That's why I said if you saw the name and it sounded familiar, it should, because he was on that season, but obviously didn't win that season or he'd still be in UFC.
No, I mean, you mentioned him before, and I just want to bring him up again because that's a guy that hardcore fans know about, and he just needs to get, he was on Ultimate Fighter, the team episode, the team season that you talked about. I think he's a name that the casual fans could latch onto. And if you put like, I'm not saying put a rocket on his back almost, but one or two more quality fights and we might see him on a bigger stage in 2017 or even 2018.
Yeah, he could be working his way up to welterweight title contention. I mean, if he's ready for John Fitch in a couple more fights, then more power to him.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, that's a test right there. If you can beat John Fitch, you should be fighting in another promotion.
Maybe, but
it's a long stretch, but
yeah, but World Series Fighting is doing a pretty good job of keeping their champions happy. I mean, did you hear that post-fight promo that Moraes cut?
Oh, I missed that one.
Yeah, he said, I love the organization. I love everybody here. I thank God for my family, for my son, for my wife, and for everybody here. And we're doing great things, and I want to do great things here, and anything is possible in the sport. So, Dominic Cruz, why don't you come and fight me? We can have a fight right here and see who really is the best bantamweight in the world.
When it comes to you're right. When it comes to their champions, they know how to protect them. But is it a financial thing? Is it a schedule thing? Like, what makes the champions happy to stay in their promotion as opposed to jumping ship?
I'd say it's probably a combination of the money and the fact that they're getting to, I don't want to say anything that doesn't state accurately the facts here, so I'm trying to choose my words carefully here. It's bigger fish in a smaller pond, I would say. Not saying that the World Series of Fighting is small, because they're on NBC Sports and they're one of the promotions that we talk about here on a regular basis, but they're not as big as Bellator, and Bellator is not as big as UFC. I think that's a fair way to put it, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think NBC is it's putting the spotlight on this promotion in the best sense of they're giving them the proper airtime. It's not like they're sticking them in you know what I mean? They could do a lot worse by covering them. They're doing a really good job in promoting World Series of Fighting.
That's true. I agree with everything you just said. There
you go. All right, so let's talk about this weekend's show, and it's the UFC Fight Night 92 in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Yep, and I've already got all the odds for the main card, and don't ask me for odds on the prelims because I couldn't find any. I guess nobody cares.
All right, Yair Rodriguez and Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres on the main event. Rodriguez 8-1. He's got to be the favorite.
Well, let me ask you who you pick, and then I'll tell you who the favorite is.
You know, I like Bruce Leroy. I really do. I just think it's too big of a challenge for him. I think Rodriguez wins by decision.
All right. Well, as luck would have it, you are pretty much on the money, no pun intended, about this, because your Rodriguez is the -270 favorite, Alex Caceres plus 230, and definitely Yair Rodriguez is the man to beat right now, because ever since he won Tough Latin America, he's gone undefeated in UFC, and obviously he went undefeated on that show as well, even though those fights don't officially count in his record. He's got a pretty long winning streak going, so Bruce Leroy, he's a fun fighter. He always brings it every time, but if you look at his overall record, 12-8, he's just barely treading water. So you got a guy on the rise who's got a lot going for him. You got a guy that's really fun to watch, but really inconsistent. I got to go with the guy that's on the rise.
And both these guys are jacked to the gills in a good way.
That's true. And so long as they pass a piss test, they can be as jacked up as they want to be, even though they're not white boys.
No update, folks, on Lesnar. We'll find out next week, hopefully.
Yeah, sooner or later, we'll get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, before Brock does.
You just keep setting him up, I'll just keep knocking him down. Absolutely.
Dennis Bermudez and Honey Jason. Almost identical records. Bermudez 15-5, Honey Jason 14-5. I'm gonna go with Honey on this one.
I disagree.
Really?
Well, Bermudez is the number 9 UFC featherweight in the division. And yeah, he lost to Ricardo the Bully Lamas and Little Heathen Jeremy Stevens, but those are two of the best guys in the division, so ain't no shame in your game when you lose to two guys like that. And he got a really quality win before those losses over Tetsuya Kawajiri, who we both agree is like your perennial gatekeeper of UFC featherweights. Yeah. Like, you gotta get past him to get anywhere, and he did. So, I like Bermudez more than Jason, who is a good fighter, but really inconsistent. He's only won one out of his last 4 fights, and he had a win overturned out of those 4 due to failing a drug test. So, in the new USADA era of UFC, I don't know that Jason or Bezeha, however you want to say it, I don't think Honey Bezeha beats Dennis Bermudez at this point.
All right, what do the odds say?
-225 Bermudez, plus 185 for Honey Jason.
Wow, that's actually good odds there. Yeah. Zach Cummings and Santiago Ponzinibbio.
All right, you tell me your pick, and I'll tell you the odds.
I'll go with Cummings.
Incorrect.
Damn.
Plus 145 for Cummings, minus 165 for Ponzinibbio.
Come on. That's a coin flip.
I don't know if it's a coin flip, because Ponzinibbio's won 4 out of his last 5. On the other hand, Cummings, if you're gonna bet a dog, and it's almost a coin flip, you might want to go with Cummings because the only guy he's lost to in 4 years was Gunnar Nelson. So, not a bad pick if you're going to go with Cummings.
All right. What about Joseph Gigalotti and Trevor Smith?
I had Tell Us Ladies and Chris Camozzi next, but let me.
Sorry. I might have an updated card here.
Yeah.
I don't have that card. I don't actually have that. I do not have. Oh, there it is. Sorry, I skipped ahead. Yeah, Camozzi and ladies. My bad.
Yes, I'll just go ahead and tell you the odds now. Ladies minus 175, Camozzi plus 155.
Yeah, I can see that. I could see a submission by ladies.
I could, but Camozzi is on a 3-fight win streak right now. Tom Kong Watson, Joe Diesel Riggs, and Vitor Miranda. Some quality fighters.
Yeah, but you said yourself, Joe Diesel Riggs isn't the fighter he once was.
Right, but Miranda is definitely a tough out, and Watson, he had a little bit of a buzz going for him for a while there, so I'm not gonna shit on the fact that he beat 3 guys in a row that are capable of pulling off an upset in their own right any day of the week.
No, I'll still stick with ladies.
I will too. I'm not, again, when I talk about guys that have lost, I'm gonna talk about the quality of the guys that they lost to, as opposed to just getting beaten by scrubs. And if you're Tell Us Ladies, there ain't no shame in losing to Gegard Mousasi or Michael Bisping. Those are 2 of the best guys in the entire weight class.
All right, what about Moroz and Taylor?
Oh, okay. And then Gigliotti and Smith after that, right?
Yeah.
So let's start with Moroz and Taylor. Then who are you picking in that? And then I'll tell you the odds.
I'm going to go with Moroz.
That was a smart pick, Peter. She is minus 240. Taylor is plus 200. Now, here's the key thing to consider. They have identical records. They're both 7-1. But the only person Moroz lost to is Valerie Letourneau, who you talked about earlier. And you know what? I think that Danielle Taylor could be an up-and-coming strawweight on the rise, but we just don't know how good she is because all of her fights have been in King of the Cage. So this is her first real test on a big stage, and I can't think Mirage shits the bed. But again, it's the year of upsets, so you never know.
No. Let's go Gigalotti and Smith, wrapping up the main card here.
All right. This one is your coin flip of any of them because Gigliotti is minus 140. Trevor Smith is plus 120. So he's technically the dog here, but I think that has more to do with the fact that he's been out of action for a while. He hasn't fought since last year, but that was a quality win for him. He beat Dan Miller. So I'm kind of leaning towards hot sauce here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Trevor Smith as well.
All right. Well, that is our main card, and that's all the ones I have odds for.
All right. So the prelims, I'm just going to mention a couple of fights here, Stevie, because they have some names you might be familiar with. Dominic Steele against Court McGee.
Yep.
And that's on the prelims on Fox Sports 1.
No. This whole thing is on Fight Pass.
Oh, the whole thing's on Fight Pass. Oh, you're right. Okay, I have Fox Sports 1 on the prelims, that's why. I must have wrote it down wrong. Court McGee, Dominic Steele. On Fight Pass in my notes, I've got Kawajiri and Swanson.
That is correct.
That's a scary fight. I mean, Kawajiri, tail end of his career. Swanson.
But I just talked about Kawajiri being a really tough fighter and a really hard out for anybody, so.
But isn't Swanson the same thing?
I agree they're both excellent fighters.
It's a shame someone's gotta lose.
Yeah, this could be a main card fight on a different card.
I think it deserves to be a little higher on the card, to be honest, but that's just me. I think they want to have more eyeballs at the earlier fights.
Perhaps so, but yeah, we'll just see how it plays out.
Alright, so that's UFC Fight Night 92, and that's going to do it for the show this week. Stevie, what's on tap for Thursday night AMP?
New Japan G1 Climax, the latest news from WWE, and whatever else we feel like shooting the shit about.
Wasn't there a pay-per-view? No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I don't want to stack your card a little bit higher, but I do want to mention that for those who don't know, Rec MMA here in Ottawa is coming back. It's actually, I'm going to use a wrestling analogy here, Stevie. It's the Thursday before SummerSlam. So Thursday Rec, Saturday NXT, Sunday SummerSlam. It's going to be a pretty packed weekend in August for me.
Now, is Rec coming back under new ownership? What's the deal?
I believe it's the same ownership. I just got the memo on Facebook this week, so I'm doing some digging to find out more details, and with any luck, I'll have some names on who's fighting who next week. But yeah, I do want to mention that the UFC has signed a second fighter from Ottawa, which, you know, it's pretty cool. I like to say, you know, we had I can't speak right now. Talk about the local boy. It's the second guy from the Ottawa Academy of Mixed Martial Arts to make it to the main roster. So he'll be fighting in Vancouver. He was on he was on a couple local cards here in Ottawa. I've seen him fight before. He's really good. And I'm just trying to pull up. Hold on. I had it written down and now I can't find it. Mark Holst is there's rumors that Mark Holst, the first fighter from Ottawa, is making a return to UFC, but that's not confirmed yet. Let's see. There was a second thing here. Adam Hunter. That's his name. He's fighting in Vancouver at the Rogers Arena. The main event of that show is Damian Maia and Nacho Born Killer.
Ah, yes.
Which we talked about last week on this show, Stevie, and the level of excitement for that show, it's like tenfold now. The closer we get to that show in August, the more excited I get. It's going to be...
What do you mean? The closer we get to August? We're in August.
Oh, it's true. We're August already. Jeez. This year is flying by. We've gone from the International Fight Week and now we're already in August. How did that happen so quick?
The older we get, the faster it goes. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah. Well, we still have Conor and Diaz 2 coming up.
That's right.
And CM Punk's debut. And the Vancouver show.
And Stipe Miocic defending the heavyweight title.
And New York. Alright, well, for Stevie J, I'm Peter H, the Hardcore Canadian. Thanks for listening, and as I always say, never leave it to the judges. Good night, everybody.
See ya!